People don't feel safe anymore. Something so simple as going to the mall with your kids is like putting your life in danger. Over the weekend, this 40-year-old man began attacking random people with a knife in a mall in Sydney, Australia. It's clear that the attacker was targeting women because out of the 6 lives that were taken, 5 were women, except for the mall security guard who got in the way, and because of that, his life was also taken. Now, what happened to this specific woman really makes me think about all the mothers. This is 38-year-old Ash Good, and she was at the mall with her 9-month-old daughter when all this happened. Tragically, Ash was one of the victims and her life was taken as she tried to protect her daughter. Her baby was also wounded, but before Ash fell to the ground, she handed over her daughter to a stranger and begged for them to save her daughter's life. 9-month-old Harriet survived, but her mother didn't, and it makes me so sick that this child now has to grow up without her mother over something so senseless as this. The attacker continued to try to hurt people in the mall, but he was confronted by a police officer and they took him out. This is something that's been happening way too often now, and the fact that we have to be on edge when we're at the mall is insane.
David Farrell is still in shock after 2 children, an 8-year-old girl and her 5-year-old brother, were killed by an alleged drunk driver. The siblings were at a birthday party at Swan Creek Boat Club in Berlin Township when a woman drove straight through the building. A GoFundMe page has now been created for the victims.
No one expects to go to a birthday party and not come out of it alive.
In a horrible update, we now know a 3rd sibling, along with the mother, was also injured. The entire community grieving, coming together to help in different ways.
I had discovered from someone else that a Rupp Funeral Home was offering to do the funeral for free for the 2 children. And so I was able to pass that on, and then that got passed on to the immediate family.
David's heart just goes out to the families of the victims.
I would like to have seen someone just have made a different decision that day, and had they stayed home or driven in a different direction, how it could have been a whole different outcome.
In tragedy, 2 of the victims were pronounced deceased at the scene. This includes an 8-year-old female and a 5-year-old male who are siblings of each other. The 66-year-old female driver of the vehicle, excuse me, who will not be identified at this time, has been taken into police custody for operating while intoxicated, causing death, and she's lodged at the Monroe County Jail.
This high school teacher was sleeping with students and paying them in vapes. This case took place in Aqua Dulce in Texas earlier this month. On the 19th of March, 25-year-old high school teacher Jaden Charles was arrested. This was after an investigation was conducted into her having inappropriate relationships with male students. The investigation was actually initially conducted about the use of vaping on premises. It ended up uncovering Jaden's alleged activities with minors. She allegedly bought vapes and vape accessories for the boys. She allegedly got them intoxicated and then would SA them. 4 male students came forward and gave their accounts of what had happened to them. It's believed there may be up to 12 boys involved. The now former teacher is charged with 2 counts of grooming and 2 counts of aggravated SA of a child. Now, sickeningly, Jaden actually is known to be a mother of 4 herself.
That the little girl will forever share her birthday with the date her mother died.
This is who you ruined her life. She will never know her mommy.
23-year-old Yesenia Aguilar was 8 months pregnant when this woman who was under the influence ran her over. Yesenia and her husband were walking together on the sidewalk when Courtney Pandolfi came out of nowhere and hit Yesenia. What's crazy is that this was Courtney's 5th DUI since 2008. Fortunately, after an emergency C-section, the baby survived. But the mother didn't, and the father, James Alvarez, says that it's been difficult accepting the fact that his wife died on the same day that his daughter was born. This Ring camera captured the chilling moment 21-year-old Emmanuel Espinosa knocked on his mother's front door and waited until she came out before viciously stabbing her to death. Emmanuel, also known as Manny, explains that he loved his mother and had a good relationship with her, but that he had been wanting to take her life for a very long time until one day he actually went through with it. People who knew Manny described him as a sweet and quiet person and are in complete disbelief that he did such a horrific thing. So what exactly made Manny snap all of a sudden?
Did you see Netflix came out with a show that's a prison experiment reality show? It's called Unlocked, a jail experiment, and it aims to see what happens if you give prisoners in a maximum security jail more freedoms. So prisoners inside of Pulaski County Detention Center in Arkansas are usually locked inside of their jail cells for 23 hours a day with only 1 hour out of the cell. And usually in the hour they're so pent up that violence ensues and they're forced back into the cells before the hour is up. But a new sheriff comes to the jail and he has an experiment he wants to run. He wants to take all the deputies out of the unit and unlock all of the doors so prisoners have unfiltered access to go in and out of their cells. And immediately the other people who run the jail are like, this is a terrible idea. We can't even trust them for 1 hour a day. But the sheriff is like, no, we need to treat these people as adults. And with that, they unlock the doors for the next 6 weeks. And people are finding the show fascinating because you get to see how the men handle conflict management and create this little community. But people are also kind of conflicted about it because at the end of the day, we are voyeuristically watching people in prison. But despite how people feel, they can't stop watching it. It's #1 right now. So let me know in the comments if you've seen it. I'm very curious what people are thinking.
This 12-year-old girl unalived her entire family so she could be with her 23-year-old boyfriend. Jasmine Richardson was a normal kid until she turned 11 years old. She started dressing in a darker aesthetic, liking some darker things. She would post on websites like MySpace and vampirefreaks.com, telling people she was 15 instead of 11. Because the thing about Jasmine is even though she was 11, she didn't look 11. She always kind of looked older than she actually was. She started sneaking out to hang out with her new older friends and would meet older guys. By the time that Jasmine was 12 years old, she was in a full-on relationship with this freak, 23-year-old Jeremy. And just so you know, just because she was lying about her age on social media, this guy was fully aware that his girlfriend was 12 years old, a literal preteen, and he would also tell people that he was a 300-year-old werewolf. So for context, we are dealing with a full-on freak. Jasmine's parents were horrified when they found out that their 12-year-old daughter was online telling people that she was older than she actually was and that she was dating a full-on adult. So they did their best to keep Jeremy away. Jasmine and Jeremy didn't want to be apart, and they thought that the only way that they could be together is if Jasmine's parents were no longer alive. What started out as jokes became real plans to not only unalive Jasmine's parents, but her 8-year-old brother as well. On April 22nd, 2006, Jasmine secretly let Jeremy into her home where he brutally unalived her parents. Jasmine's 8-year-old brother, Jacob, heard the entire thing while hiding in his room holding his lightsaber for protection. It's like heart-shattering. It's unclear who actually unalived 8-year-old Jacob because Jasmine and Jeremy blame each other for his death. Jasmine and Jeremy thought that they were soulmates, and now with her parents out of the picture, they were going to be together forever. But in reality, that was not the case. They were actually quickly brought to justice because they were bragging to anyone that would listen about what they had just done to her entire family. And of course, as soon as they were arrested, the soulmates turned on each other. Jeremy was sentenced to 3 life sentences, but due to Jasmine's age, she only served 6 years in a rehabilitation center and 4 years on probation. She was fully released into society in 2017 and has been out living in society free as a bird ever since under a new name. Actually, a lot of controversy in this case because of that, but what do you think? Do you think Jasmine is a victim, a child manipulated by a predator, or do you think if she's old enough to do the crime, she's old enough to do the time?
West Virginia mom arrested after teen daughter in emaciated and skeletal state is found dead. Julia Miller behind me has been convicted and charged in the connection with the death of her 14-year-old daughter. Her daughter was found dead in the floor of the bathroom. On April 17th, the deputies responded to the scene because a teen apparently went into cardiac arrest. That is where they found the 14-year-old girl, literally just a skeleton. They believe she may have had an undiagnosed eating disorder, but she hadn't had help in 4 years or been to a doctor in 4 years. And I mean, how could her parents not notice this? The grandmother also said the teen had not been to school since 2019 or 2020. Maybe she was homeschooled, maybe she wasn't, maybe her parents just didn't care, but her mother, Julia Miller, has been arrested for neglect. And obviously this neglect now resulted in death. This case is new, so charges will be updated and ongoing. Miller is being held on a $250,000 bond right now. Investigators are just appalled at the state of her daughter and how skeletal she was. And I mean, come on, 4 years and no help for the girl. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. And as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
This doctor was caught storing poisoned IV bags because he was angry over potentially losing his job. This all started in August 2022 when a surgical center in Dallas was forced to be closed down after there were a number of unexplained emergencies during patient procedures. One of these emergencies included this healthy 18-year-old who came in for a sinus surgery. Well, he ended up going into cardiac arrest and almost lost his life. All the patients who had the same reaction during a routine procedure survived, except for this woman who also happened to be a doctor. Dr. Melanie Casper became sick one day and was given an IV bag to take home to help her feel better. But minutes after inserting the needle, she suffered a heart attack and passed away. It turns out that these patients were poisoned with a nerve blocker, which was later found in the IV bags. After conducting an investigation, they realized that these IV bags had small holes in them, which showed that they were tampered with. Then after looking at surveillance footage, Dr. Reynaldo Ortiz was seen storing tainted IV bags, which turned out to be the same bags used on these patients. Prosecutors believe that Dr. Reynaldo was angry that he was going to lose his job over a problem in one of his previous surgeries and think that's why he did this. He now faces up to life in prison if convicted.
Breaking news as they have just arrested the man who's believed to have kidnapped Catherine Aguas Vivas before she was found deceased in her burned vehicle in one of the most perplexing cases anyone has ever seen. They arrested this man, 28-year-old Jordanish Torres Garcia, and revealed many new details. They said they believe he's the one that jumped into Catherine's SUV at this busy intersection and that the sweatshirt he was wearing is identical to one that he posted on his Facebook profile picture. He's also linked to this green Acura that was seen following her and ramming into her vehicle, forcing her to call her husband, who never called the cops and instead called a deputy that he knew to illegally get information on the detectives in the case, their names, home addresses, and phone numbers. They also named this man, Giovanni Hernandez, as a person of interest as someone who Catherine FaceTimed while she was driving through downtown Orlando. Hernandez apparently told Catherine's brother that she was in the area 3 hours away from her home to deliver money and some other stuff to a friend. They also found some crazy stuff at his home, but he is currently on the run. And they said despite what he did, Catherine's husband is not a suspect in the case. He never called 911. He asked for highly sensitive information, but he is not a suspect. Rest in peace to Catherine Aguas Vivas, and as soon as more information comes out, I'll keep you guys updated.
Wait for it.
This is the scary story about the school trip. An entire class of 6th graders went on a school trip one day. Everybody was taking pictures with their phones and cameras and having such a great time. But when they all got back to school, they started looking through all the photos they took, when suddenly one of the girls screamed, "Oh my God, what is that?" In the picture, one of the boys in the class was sitting on the bus, and nothing seemed strange about the photo until you looked at his reflection in the window. His face in the reflection looked like it was yellow and bulging, and completely mutating. Also, there was a white floating figure behind him in the reflection. Everybody turned the photo upside down and realized it was a human skull, and it was horrific. And when the boy saw the photo of himself, he immediately burst into tears and had a panic attack. The teacher then took the boy to the nurse's office, and the principal banned everybody from speaking about the strange photo ever again. And to make this even scarier, 7 days later, the boy died from a brain tumor. The photo is said to be on the internet somewhere, but I don't recommend looking for it.
This 12-year-old girl unalived her entire family so that she could be with her 23-year-old boyfriend. Jasmine Richardson was a pretty normal kid until she turned about 11 years old. That's when she began dressing in darker clothing, liking darker things, and she started posting on MySpace and a website called vampirefreaks.com, telling people online that she was 15 instead of 11. And she would get away with it because despite being 11, Jasmine always looked older than she actually was, and she began sneaking out with her older friends and meeting older guys. And when she turned 12, she began a full-on relationship with this 23-year-old freak named Jeremy. And even though Jasmine lied about her age online, Jeremy knew that she was 12, a literal minor, and he would also tell people that he was a 300-year-old werewolf, so a lot of issues there. Jasmine's parents were extremely worried when they found out she was telling people she was older than she actually was and that she was dating a full-on adult, and they tried to keep Jeremy away. But Jasmine and Jeremy didn't want to be apart, and they thought the only way they could be together was if Jasmine's parents were no longer in the picture. And what started out as jokes became real plans to unalive her parents and her 8-year-old little brother. On April 22nd, 2006, Jasmine led Jeremy secretly into her home where he brutally unalived her parents. And her poor 8-year-old brother heard the entire thing while he was hiding in his room, holding his lightsaber for protection. And it's unclear who unalived 8-year-old Jacob because Jasmine and Jeremy blame it on each other. Jasmine and Jeremy thought they would be together forever, but they were quickly brought to justice after constantly bragging about what they did to her family so that they could be together. Jeremy was sentenced to 3 life sentences, but due to Jasmine's age, she was only sentenced to 6 years in rehab and 4 years of probation. She was fully released in 2017 and is walking completely free today under a new name. Some people believe she was just young and manipulated, and others believe that she completely knew what she was doing.
My name's Lieutenant Flowers. I was the one that initially arrived on the crime scene. At that time, I had just started with law enforcement. In our town, we have a lot of rural areas, okay? Let's just say a lot of places where if you want to get rid of something, you can get rid of it. As far as our victim, I don't know too much about her, but I do know one thing, is that when she went into a room, she just lit it up. She just lit it up.
This story is disturbing. This former Arkansas state representative tried to adopt 3 girls. He then allegedly tried to have the girls exorcised before eventually rehoming them with a pedophile. So this is Justin Harris, and he and his wife tried to adopt 3 sisters in the year 2013. However, upon welcoming the 3 girls into their home, Justin and his wife discovered that the eldest sister had reactive attachment disorder, which prevents children from forging a bond with other children. The eldest sister then threatened to murder Justin's eldest 3 sons, and they never finalized her adoption. Justin and his wife then decided to give up on the whole thing when the middle daughter also was diagnosed with RAD. Keep in mind, at the time that these girls went into their house, they were 4 years, 2 years, and 9 months old. So in the spring of 2013, the family's babysitter, a girl named Chelsea Goldsboro, reported that the family was trying to perform exorcisms on the 3 young sisters. Chelsea later stated that Justin's wife, Marcia, told her the girls had demons and they could telepathically speak to each other, and that a demon was lifting up off the bed like levitating, and that a, quote, demon was having sex with the middle sister. Justin and his wife have denied that this ever happened, but I don't know why a babysitter would make up such outlandish claims. And this is where the story gets really dark. So Justin and his wife didn't want to be charged with abandonment if they gave up the 3 girls. So instead of giving the girls back to the state, to the foster care system, they gave them to one of Justin's friends, a man named Eric Francis. Now, from the outside, Eric may have appeared that he would be a suitable father for these young girls, but Eric was a hardcore closeted pedophile. But you see, at the time, Eric was the head teacher at a Christian academy that Justin Harris ran. He already had other adopted children with his wife, and he was seen as a family man, a good, God-fearing guy. But only 6 months after he was given possession of the 3 girls, Eric was arrested and then eventually convicted of assaulting violently the 6-year-old middle child. So this obviously blew up into a massive scandal for Justin Harris. And after all of this happened, this was a huge scandal in the media. Justin announced he wouldn't be seeking another term in office, and he actually supported a bill against rehousing children. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms now.
Yesterday, something very disturbing happened. A man set himself alight outside the Donald Trump trial. And now, according to his manifesto, we're learning that he did it as an extreme act of protest in order to draw attention to what he described as an urgent and important discovery. So here's everything we know about Max Azzarello. He was 37 years old from Florida and described himself as an investigative researcher, but was listed on police documents as unemployed. He has 3 prior criminal complaints from 2023, including destruction of a Bill Clinton autograph at a hotel, public disorderly conduct, vandalism, and he was placed on 180 days of probation. Daily Mail also report that he spent 3 days in a psych ward in August last year. But then just yesterday, before he set himself alight, he threw pamphlets on the ground urging people to read his research on Substack, where you'll find an enormous amount of his writings on topics that even he describes himself as conspiracies. He summarizes many of his broad-ranging and vast claims by saying that we're all victims of a totalitarian con, and that our government is about to hit us with an apocalyptic fascist world coup. And what's actually really sad is that if you go onto his Instagram, before about 2020, he seems like a completely normal and mentally healthy person. He studied anthropology and public policy at university until 2009, and even went on to get a master's degree in city and regional planning at Rutgers University in 2012. His posts consisted of everyday regular stuff like his food, dogs, going to baseball games, flying in the Outer Banks, and a congratulations to his sister and new brother-in-law when they got married. But then 2020 hit. He didn't post for about 2 years, and when he did come back, all of his posts now surrounded all of the things that he was looking into, and you could tell that something changed.
Start a fucking revolution. Start a fucking revolution.
And I think we've all probably experienced this to some degree with the people around us. The pandemic was a trigger point for a lot of people. But honestly, a really important takeaway from all of this is that while conspiracy theories can be super interesting, because they're so alluring, it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole and get so consumed with these theories to the point where you're no longer controlling these ideas, and the ideas start to control you. And at that point, especially if you're dealing with mental health issues, they're no longer harmless. And this is a very confronting but worst case scenario of all of this playing out.
Scary moments caught in real life.